lots and lots of layers, okay?
And
so,
this is like an Elmer's glue?
No, actually, well, this is glue, but it's watered down glue so
Okay.
that it's not so thick. You don't want to reuse really thick glue because what happens if you use real thick glue from one, this gets really, really super stiff.
Yes.
You want it to be stiff because this is going to be a journal, but you're going to put like thicker glue over it to thicken it a little bit. But even so, you want your glue, you want your journal to be similar to my journal. You want it a little bit flexible rather than real stiff. So it's not important whether it is or whether it isn't at this point.
Okay.
But if you're going to sew on it, or if you're going to, you know, put something on it that you're going to like maybe bead or whatever, you want it to be thin enough to where you don't have to worry about going through it when you go through it with a needle.
Breaking.
It's really stiff. Yeah, yeah.
Leave
So
it
you
for me.
want to leave it that way first, because later on, if you want to make it a little stiffer, you can put something over it, a cover over it, like a gel medium over it, to make it a little stiffer. Okay, so there's the gloves, and this is the glue, and here's the brush. This is a brush that you're going to use to just simply take your, you know what, I'm going to get a bigger brush. I need to get a big foam brush for you. This technique is the paper cloth.
Paper cloth.
Yeah, it's actually a process where a lot of people who do art quilts want to have paper. They want to have cloth. They want it to be fabric. This is actually creating your own fabric.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is your brush. You want to just kind of saturate your fabric with your glue. Right.
And then,
right.
then after you've got all of
then after you get that done, then you're going to take pieces of your tissue and just start gluing the tissue on. And you don't necessarily want to cover your pattern. You may want to use some of your pattern that's in the background. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to cover it with the tissue necessarily, although that tissue is see-through, so that actually will show the pattern through it. This is the paint, and this is not going to be the way you use it. You're going to use this watered down as well. So you've got different kinds of paint. And you don't necessarily have to worry about really what the color is, because what you're going to do is like a variegated colors.
Okay.
Like different colors.
Now, do I put the paste all over?
Yeah,
or
the
do I
whole entire
start
thing. No, the whole thing.
Okay.
The whole thing. You want that to be completely saturated. That's going to give the stiffness. You don't want to be so floppy that it's just a piece of material.
Right.
You want it to have some kind of stiffness to it. Okay, so start that.
It's funny, this morning I was looking at for my little puppy in that picture, and I couldn't find it. Remember?
Oh, yeah, the puppy that you saw, you couldn't see it again? Oh,
I guess the lighting in that room.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
funny, when I showed it to my husband.
He didn't see it either?
No, he saw it, but
he
he
saw
saw a different puppy.
Oh, he saw a different puppy.
A different angle.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? It's interesting because, you know, I don't know, when you were a kid, did you ever, like, I'm sure you went outside and kind of like lay on the ground and looked at the clouds and saw pictures of the clouds.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that once you saw what you saw, you could not see it again. You know, it was like it was there. You know, it was like, oh my gosh, look at that! Look at that castle! It was like all excited.
Yeah.
I used to do the same thing when it got really kind of like dusk. and you could see the spaces in between the trees that had no leaves.
Yeah.
Well, actually, even when it had leaves, it had these interesting patterns, and you could see things like in the trees. It was very cool. Of course, I was quite imaginative when I was a kid.
Yeah,
You know.
me too.
I used to see things in wallpaper, you know, stuff in wallpaper.
And the patterns,
in wallpaper, yeah.
Every pattern. you would-
Everything, yeah.
Yeah.
But there were artists. There were artists that actually used the technique in their art. Paul Klee did it. You know, he would look at like a stain, and he'd see what was in the stain, and then he would bring it out in his art. Yeah. So lots of artists did that. You know, it was just some of the
For
a different way of seeing.
to motivate
yeah.
them.
Exactly. Exactly. To
Inspire.
Yeah.
Inspire.
Exactly. Start off with something,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do that with ink blots. You know, you
Yeah.
can actually do an ink blot thing, and then look at the ink blot and go, "Wow, I see this face in there." You know, and maybe nobody else sees it, but you do, and that's all that matters.
Yes, whether you look at the back, the dark or the light in the patterns.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, once you get this saturated, you're going to come back and put more glue underneath your tissue paper. So, because it's not going to be, well, actually, no, you've got the glue. You've
getting
got
it?
it pretty saturated. So you can just start putting your tissue paper on. Once you get that
That layer.
done, that step done, you can just start putting your tissue paper over it.
Now, do I
Yeah.
kind of consider like I like this?
Well,
part.
if you want a pattern, if you want the pattern to show through, you're not
Semi-show.
going to worry, you're not going to have any problem with that, because this tissue paper is actually translucent. It actually, you can see through it, see, to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want that totally, you can just put it like this. But see, you can see a little bit of the pattern.
Oh, yeah.
But it's subtle. It's very subtle. If you want this pattern to show completely, then you don't have to put tissue paper over it at all.
I could avoid a
yeah,
layer.
you can avoid.
Maybe,
Yeah.
because this looks like it is pretty
It
much
is kind
the
of the
center,
focal point. Yeah, it is
right?
kind of focal point.
Because when this thing folds,
Yeah.
that would be.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so that might be
yeah.
kinda nice.
Yeah, that would be really
I
good.
might regret it. But
Now
you
the
know.
other, you have to realize this is the outside. The
Yeah.
inside is the other side.
Right. Yeah.
So
This
you're
is what's
gonna
going to
have,
show.
yeah, you're gonna have this across the journal.
Right.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a pretty big journal, but I think what we'll do is once you get completely done and it's dry and everything is done, you might come back and turn the edges like this and finish it to a certain degree. You know,
Okay.
finish the edges maybe.
But these two?
Yeah, just to finish it a little bit. And you can also do, not to this extent, but you can do some kind of decorating the edges like this.
Oh.
Now this is a different type of journal,
Okay.
but you can do something similar with the fibers and the wire and the beads.
That's lovely. Let me see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I wanna
That's
touch
just
it.
a simple journal that I got at Walmart. It's mostly writing,
Yeah.
but I wanted to decorate the rings because I didn't like the
And so
rings
you,
bare.
the rings were there and you added
Yeah,
the
what
fabric.
I did is I used a needle, a big needle, and I just put fibers in the needle, and I just kind of went over and under like this, kind of like a pattern where I just like went underneath the rings, kind of like covering the whole rings with the fabric. And this was all this was just a torn up skirt that had pretty colors to it because I get a lot of stuff in the thrift store, and I just tore the skirt in strips. And then I put it through a big needle so it had a big eye, and I just went around the rings to cover the rings. And then I came back and put gold thread over it, and then I came back and I kind of like just kind of wove a little bit of wire underneath and
With
some beads on it.
Nice.
And it just was just a decorate. But I've done other things too that since then I've done other stuff, other kinds of decorating the edges. So we can do other things too.
Now, when you put down that tissue and the number 3 was showing, it won't continue to show? I mean, like that had a 3 on it.
It doesn't matter.
Will
It
it-
doesn't
will
matter
it
because you're
show?
going to put something over it. See,
So it's
anything
gonna
that
be-
you have that you don't want to show,
You just-
some of the words, the lines, or the words, the numbers, or whatever. Because this is Lacal's
Patterns.
tissue. The reason why I use this is number one, I get this at a thrift store. I get like a package, and then I have the tissue in it. But it's very strong tissue. Plus, it can be stamped over. Plus, you can actually put something over it to reduce the you know, the detail stuff on it.
So I think I've got this all wet. You think